The massive chamber buzzed with worried voices as representatives from across the galaxy gathered for the most urgent meeting in their recorded history. Crystal beings that looked like living diamonds sat next to creatures with too many arms, while others that seemed to be made of pure energy floated above their seats. All of them shared the same look of fear and hopelessness. Commander Kess, of the powerful Arcanite Empire, stood at the center of the room, her forearms moving as she pointed to the giant screen above them. The image showed a dark, twisted ship drifting through space like a metal coffin. It was bigger than most cities, covered in strange symbols that hurt to look at directly. "This is Object Omega 7, she announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "It appeared in our sensors 3 months ago, moving toward the Kepler system. Our best scientists believe it belonged to a race that died out millions of years ago." A ripple of nervous energy passed through the crowd. The Zephyrians, beings made of living crystal, pulsed with dim blue light when they were scared. Right now, the entire Zephyrian section looked like a field of dying stars. "The ship will hit Kepler 44 to be in exactly 147 days, Commander Kess continued. "That world is home to over 4 billion people. If this thing crashes into their planet, everyone dies." Ambassador Disses of the Collective raised one of her pale hands. The Collective were strange creatures that shared one giant mind spread across billions of bodies. When one of them spoke, they spoke for all of them. "Our hive mind has run thousands of battle simulations. The ship's defenses are unlike anything we've ever seen. 3 of our best scout ships tried to get close. All 3 were destroyed in seconds." The room filled with worried murmurs. If the Collective couldn't handle it, who could? They were known for solving problems that seemed impossible by thinking with billions of minds at once. "What about the radiation?" asked General Vortok of the Stellar Alliance. His people were tough warriors who could survive in the vacuum of space without suits. "Our sensors show energy readings that would cook any living thing." Commander Kess nodded grimly. "The radiation coming from that ship is beyond anything in our databases. Our medical teams estimate that any rescue crew would die within hours of getting close, maybe minutes." She pressed a button, and the image changed to show the inside of the alien ship. The pictures were grainy and filled with static, taken by robotic probes that had managed to survive for a few precious seconds before being destroyed. The ship appears to be some kind of weapon or prison. We can see corridors filled with machines that are still working after millions of years. Whatever built this thing wanted to make sure it stayed dangerous for a very, very long time. Ambassador Zeltar of the Zephyrian Empire stepped forward. His crystal body caught the light from the chamber's walls, throwing rainbow patterns across the floor. "My people have studied this for weeks. The technology is so advanced that we can barely understand how it works. It's like asking a child to fix a starship engine with finger paints." "The hegemony has also reviewed the data," added Prex Molden, speaking for one of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. "Even our best gravity manipulators cannot alter the ship's path. Whatever powers it seems to bend space itself. It's locked onto its target, like a guided missile." The chamber fell quiet, except for the soft humming of the translation devices. Every species present had spent weeks trying to find a solution. The smartest minds in the galaxy had worked day and night, but they all came to the same terrible conclusion. "So we're just going to let 4 billion people die." The voice belonged to Senator Crix of the Outer Rim Territories. Her species looked almost human except for their silver skin and extra eyes. "There has to be something we can do, Commander." Kess spread all 4 of her arms wide in defeat. "We've tried everything. Direct assault fails because of the defenses. We can't redirect it because the ship is too massive and too well protected. We can't evacuate 4 billion people in less than 5 months. And we can't get close enough to study it properly because the radiation would kill any crew before they could learn anything useful." "What about remote robots?" suggested another voice from the back. Tried it, replied these. The ship's defenses destroy any artificial intelligence that gets within scanning range. It's like the thing was built specifically to prevent anyone from interfering with its mission. The weight of their failure pressed down on everyone in the chamber. These were the greatest civilizations in known space. Cultures that had mastered faster than light travel, controlled entire star systems, and solved problems that had puzzled scientists for centuries. But this ancient ship, this relic from a dead race, had beaten all of them. Then, it settled. Commander Kess said quietly, "We'll do what we can to help evacuate the outer settlements of the Kepler system. It won't save everyone, but maybe we can save a few million lives before." She didn't finish the sentence. Everyone knew how it ended. The great chamber began to empty, as representatives prepared to return to their worlds with the worst news imaginable. They had found something they couldn't fix, couldn't fight, and couldn't stop. All they could do now was watch and wait for the disaster they were powerless to prevent. The heavy doors of the Galactic Council chamber slid open with a soft whoosh, and 3 figures in simple black uniforms walked in. Most of the alien representatives barely looked up from their gloomy conversations. The humans were the newest members of the galactic community, having only discovered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. To the advanced civilizations gathered here, they were still primitive newcomers who barely deserved a seat at the table. Captain Lee Juan led the small human delegation, followed by Commander Park Min-ho and Lieutenant Kim So-man. Their uniforms looked plain and cheap compared to the glowing armor and exotic materials worn by other species. Gaiwan carried only a simple tablet computer, while the Arcanites had floating holographic displays, and the Zephyrians communicated through light patterns that painted the air around them. "Ah, the humans have arrived," Commander Kess announced, without much enthusiasm. Her forearms gestured weakly toward the empty seats reserved for Earth's representatives. "Please, take your seats. Though I'm afraid we've already concluded that this crisis is beyond any solution." Juan sat down and immediately began studying her tablet, reading through the mission briefing that had been sent to all council members. Park leaned over her shoulder, pointing at different sections of the data, while Kim took notes on a paper pad. Several alien delegates noticed this with amusement. Paper notebooks were something their civilizations had abandoned thousands of years ago. "The situation is quite hopeless," Ambassador Zeltar explained to the humans, his crystal body dimming with sadness. "We've exhausted every possible approach. The ancient ship cannot be stopped, and any attempt to board it would result in certain death. We're now focused on evacuation efforts, though we can only save a fraction of the population." Jiwan looked up from her tablet after several minutes of reading. The chamber had grown quiet as other species watched the humans review information that had stumped the galaxy's brightest minds for months. "This ship," she said, pointing to the image on her tablet screen. "How big did you say it was?" "Approximately 12 kilometers long and 4 kilometers wide," answered General Vortek. "Larger than most of our space stations, and the radiation levels fatal to all known species within hours of exposure," replied Thesis, her collective consciousness rippling with shared sorrow. "Our medical experts estimate that even our most radiation-resistant species would survive no more than 3 hours in that environment." Juan nodded and made a note on her tablet. "What about the automated defenses?" Commander Kess pulled up the tactical data. "Highly advanced energy weapons with targeting systems we don't understand. They destroyed 3 of our best reconnaissance vessels before they could get within effective scanning range. The response time suggests artificial intelligence far beyond our current capabilities. And you need someone to get on board this ship and change its course." "That would be the ideal solution," admitted Prexmolden. "But as we've explained, it's impossible. The combination of deadly radiation, advanced defenses, and unknown alien technology makes this a suicide mission. No species in the galaxy has the capability to survive such conditions." Jiwan set down her tablet and looked around the chamber at the hundreds of alien faces staring back at her. She could see fear, resignation, and defeat in their expressions. These were civilizations that had conquered space travel, mastered energy, manipulation, and built empires spanning multiple star systems. Yet they had all given up on this problem. "We'll take the mission," she said simply. The chamber fell completely silent. Even the soft humming of the translation devices seemed to pause. Ambassador Zeltar's crystal form flickered with confused patterns of light. "I'm sorry, Captain, but perhaps you don't fully understand the situation," he said carefully. "This isn't a routine space mission. The radiation alone would kill your crew before you could even approach the ship. The automated defenses have already proven they can destroy vessels far more advanced than anything in Earth's fleet." Park leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms. "Sounds challenging," he said with a slight grin. "Challenging." This is repeated, her voice carrying the bewilderment of billions of connected minds. "Captain, this is not a challenge. This is certain death. Every species represented in this chamber has concluded that the mission is impossible." Kim looked up from her notes. "With respect, Ambassador, you said impossible. We heard difficult." Commander Kess stood up, all four of her arms spread wide in frustration. "Humans, please understand. We're not talking about a dangerous mission with low chances of success. We're talking about a mission that will definitely kill everyone who attempts it. The mathematics are clear. The science is absolute. It cannot be done." Ji-Won picked up her tablet again and scrolled through the technical specifications one more time. She looked at the radiation readings, the weapons data, and the timeline. Then she looked at her two companions, who both nodded. "Radiation, automated, defenses, unknown alien technology, and a 6-month deadline," she said, ticking off each challenge on her fingers. She paused and looked around the chamber again. "Is that it?" The silence stretched on for nearly a full minute. Representatives from dozens of advanced civilizations stared at the three humans in their simple uniforms, unable to process what they had just heard. These primitive newcomers were volunteering for a mission that the galaxy's greatest minds had declared impossible. Finally, Ambassador Zeltar managed to speak. "Captain Ji-Won, are you certain your species understands the full scope of this crisis?" "We understand it perfectly," she replied, standing up and straightening her uniform. "When do we start?" 3 weeks after volunteering for the impossible mission. The human preparation facility buzzed with activity that amazed every alien observer who visited. What had started as Earth's small exploration fleet had transformed into something the galaxy had never seen before. Ships were being torn apart and rebuilt with materials that other species considered primitive, yet somehow effective. Chief Engineer Yoon Jae-in stood on a scaffolding platform, welding thick sheets of lead onto the hull of the ship Determination. Sparks flew around him as he worked, but he seemed completely relaxed, even humming a tune while he sealed each metal plate into place. Below him, his team installed radiation sensors every few meters along the ship's exterior. "The shielding still won't be perfect," called out Dr. Han Minji from her mobile laboratory nearby. She was Earth's leading expert on radiation medicine, though by galactic standards her equipment looked like ancient tools. "Even with all this lead, the crew will still get dangerous doses of radiation. So we work in shifts," replied Jae-in, not stopping his welding. 20 minutes inside the ship, 40 minutes recovery time. We've done worse things for less important reasons. Ambassador Zeltar materialized beside the work site, his crystal body pulsing with confused patterns of light. He had been observing human preparations for days, trying to understand their approach to the mission. What he saw made no sense according to everything his civilization knew about space operations. "Your methods are so crude," he said, watching a team of humans attach what looked like ordinary mining equipment to their spacecraft. "The Zephyrian Empire has energy shields that could provide better protection than these metal plates." Sergeant Choi Hoonwoo looked up from where he was loading ammunition into a magnetic railgun that humans had originally designed for asteroid mining. No offense, sir, but your energy shields didn't stop those ancient weapons from blowing up your ships. Sometimes simple and stupid works better than smart and fancy. This was what puzzled the galactic observers most. While other species had focused on developing new technologies to solve the problem, humans were using old technologies in new ways. They took mining lasers and turned them into weapons. They used construction robots as repair drones. They even strapped emergency medical equipment onto mining suits to create makeshift radiation gear. But surely you understand the scientific impossibilities, insisted Prex Molden, who had arrived with a team of Arcanite military experts. Our computer models show that organic beings cannot survive in that radiation environment. The mathematics are absolute. Dr. Minji walked over, wiping grease from her hands with a dirty cloth. Your computers are probably right, she admitted, but computers don't account for human stubbornness. We've survived ice ages, plague, wars, and learning to fly by jumping off cliffs with wings made of wood and cloth. Math said that was impossible too. What truly amazed the alien observers wasn't just the human technical solutions, but their attitude toward the whole situation. They treated the deadly mission like any other job that needed to be done. Workers joked with each other while installing life support systems. Engineers argued loudly about the best way to modify their ships, then bought each other drinks afterward. Even when discussing the very real possibility of death, they seemed almost cheerful about it. Commander Park Min-ho stood in front of a large display screen, explaining the mission plan to a mixed group of human crew members and alien observers. The plan itself was simple in a way that made the advanced civilizations uncomfortable. We'll approach the ship using minimal power to avoid triggering the defenses, he explained, pointing to a route that zigzagged through space. Our stealth isn't fancy, but it doesn't need to be. We just need to look like space rocks until we get close. And then? Asked General Vortek, his warrior species having sent representatives to observe human tactics. Then we board the ship, using these. Park gestured to what looked like modified construction equipment, cutting tools, welding gear, and a lot of duct tape. We'll work in small teams, mapping the ship bit by bit until we find the control systems. What about the radiation? We take turns getting poisoned, replied Lieutenant Kim So-min, matter-of-factly. 20 minutes of work, then back to the medical bay for treatment. It's not pleasant, but it won't kill us if we're careful about timing, and the ancient defenses will figure those out when we meet them, said Sergeant Choi, checking his equipment one more time. Back on Earth, we used to hunt animals 10 times bigger than us, with nothing but sharp sticks. This is just hunting with better sticks. The alien observers exchanged glances. This casual approach to mortal danger seemed to be a uniquely human trait. Where other species saw impossible obstacles, humans saw interesting puzzles to solve. Captain Ji-won walked through the preparation area, checking on different work teams. Her presence seemed to energize the human workers even more. She stopped to examine the modified ships, the improvised equipment, and the radiation shielding that looked like it had been assembled in someone's garage. Status report, she called. Out. All ships will be ready in 4 days, replied Jae-hung. The shielding isn't pretty, but it'll work. Medical teams are prepared for radiation treatment, added Dr. Miggy. We've got enough supplies to keep a crew healthy for months of exposure cycles. Weapons and boarding equipment are loaded and tested, finished Sergeant Choi. We're as ready as we'll ever be. Gi-won nodded and turned to address the alien observers. Gentlemen, ladies, honored delegates, we launch in 1 week. Thank you for your educational observations. As the aliens departed, still shaking their heads in bewilderment, the humans continued their preparations with the same casual confidence that had characterized their entire approach to the impossible mission. The human fleet reached Object Omega-7, exactly 73 days after leaving Earth's orbital stations. Captain Juwan stood on the bridge of the Determination, watching the massive ancient ship grow larger on her screen. It looked even more terrifying up close, with twisted metal surfaces covered in symbols that seemed to move when nobody was looking directly at them. Contact front. The voice of Corporal Jung Taeyon crackled over the communication system from the scout ship Persistence. I've got multiple energy signatures lighting up on the hull. Looks like we woke something up. Ancient weapons that had been sleeping for millions of years suddenly came to life. Bright beams of energy began sweeping through space, searching for targets. The alien ship's defenses were more advanced than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Yet the humans watched them with the same interest they might show for a new piece of machinery at work. Pattern analysis complete, reported tech specialist Oh Hai-Hung from her position at the sensor station. Her job back on Earth had been fixing communication satellites, but now she was studying weapons technology that could destroy planets. The defenses target anything with high energy output: engines, weapons, life support systems running at full power. So we go quiet, replied Captain Jiwan, as if this was the most obvious solution in the universe. All ships, reduce power to minimum levels, make us look like space rocks. Within minutes, the entire human fleet had dimmed their engines and shut down all unnecessary systems. They drifted toward the ancient ship like pieces of debris, moving slowly but steadily closer. The deadly energy beams swept past them repeatedly, but the weapons seemed unable to detect targets that weren't actively broadcasting their presence. The galactic observers monitoring the mission from a safe distance watched in amazement. Ambassador Zeltar's crystal form pulsed with colors that had no names in any human language. They're treating this like a routine maintenance job, he whispered to his aide. First team, prepare for boarding, announced Commander Park over the communications channel. Remember, 20 minutes maximum exposure, then back to the medical bay. We're not trying to be heroes today, just workers doing a job. The boarding team consisted of people who would have seemed completely ordinary in any Earth city. Sergeant Moon Sihan had been a construction foreman before joining the military. Engineer Lim Dojan spent his civilian time fixing broken air conditioners. Medical specialist Bei Jian had worked in a hospital emergency room where she dealt with everything from heart attacks to construction accidents. Boarding tube attached, reported Moon, as his team made contact with the alien ship's hull. Beginning hull breach procedures. This thing is built tough, but nothing we can't handle. They cut through the ancient metal using modified industrial tools, the same equipment that humans used for building skyscrapers and mining operations. The work was slow and careful, but it was work they understood. When the hull finally gave way, releasing a blast of radiation that would have killed most galactic species instantly, the humans simply checked their dosimeter readings and continued working. Radiation levels are high, but manageable, called out Bei Gian, monitoring her team's exposure through sensors built into their modified mining suits. We've got 17 minutes before we need to rotate out. The interior of the ancient ship was like nothing any human had ever seen, filled with corridors that seemed to bend in impossible directions and machinery that hummed with power after millions of years of operation. Yet the human boarding team treated it like any other industrial site that needed inspection and repair. Engineering Team Alpha, this is Beta Team, came Sergeant Choi Hyanwoo's voice over the communication system. He was leading a second boarding party on the opposite side of the ship. We've got another automated turret here. Same model as the one Alpha Team disabled yesterday. Should take about 20 minutes to shut it down. Roger that, Beta Team, replied Moon, while his team carefully examined an alien control panel covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly. Try not to get vaporized before lunch. The cook promised real coffee today. Copy. We'll do our best not to die before caffeine time. This casual attitude toward mortal danger was what truly amazed the galactic observers. These humans were facing technology that their greatest scientists couldn't understand, working in radiation that should have killed them, and dealing with weapons that had destroyed some of the galaxy's most advanced warships. Yet they talked about it the same way they might discuss fixing a broken elevator or repairing a leaky pipe. Dr. Han Minji ran the medical rotation schedule with the efficiency of someone managing a busy factory. Team Alpha, your exposure time is up. Return to decontamination immediately. Team Gamma, you're next up for boarding duty. The rotation system worked perfectly. Fresh teams replaced tired ones every 20 minutes, allowing the humans to maintain a constant presence inside the alien ship while keeping radiation exposure at survivable levels. What other species saw as an impossible technical challenge, humans had turned into a manageable work schedule. Status report, requested Captain Jiwan, during the daily briefing 3 weeks into the mission. We've mapped about 60% of the ship's interior, reported Park. Found what looks like the main control center, but it's protected by some kind of energy barrier. Can we get through it? Give us another week, replied Engineer Yoon with a confident grin. It's just another lock that needs the right key. We'll figure it out. The impossible had become routine, and the humans were making steady progress toward saving 4 billion lives, one shift at a time. 2 months ahead of schedule, Captain Li Juan stood in what had once been the most dangerous place in the galaxy. The ancient ship's command center hummed quietly around her, its alien displays now showing friendly green lights instead of the angry red warnings that had greeted her team weeks ago. Through the massive viewing window, she could see her ships docked against the hull like small boats tied to a pier. Final crew rotation complete, reported Commander Park Minho, checking his tablet for the last time. All personnel accounted for. And I'm happy to report that our worst radiation exposure case was Sergeant Choi, who will be back to full duty in 3 days. The transformation had been remarkable. What the galaxy's greatest minds had called Object Omega-7, a weapon of extinction hurtling toward billions of innocent lives, was now Research Station Omega. The ancient ship's trajectory had been changed using its own navigation systems, sending it into a stable orbit around an uninhabited moon where scientists could study it safely for centuries. Dr. Han Minji walked up to join them, still wearing her radiation monitoring equipment, even though the ship's dangerous systems had been shut down weeks ago. The archaeological teams are requesting extended time to catalog everything we've found. This technology could advance galactic civilization by thousands of years. What's our final count on the interesting discoveries? Asked Juan though. She already knew the answer would amaze her. 47 different types of advanced materials we've never seen before, replied Dr. Han, reading from her notes. Energy generation systems that work on principles our physicists are still trying to understand. Medical technology that could cure diseases we haven't even discovered yet. And a computer system that makes our best artificial intelligence look like a pocket calculator. The truly remarkable thing wasn't just what they had found, but how they had found it. While other species had focused on the impossibility of the mission, the humans had simply treated it like any other job that needed doing. They had worked in shifts, solved problems as they came up, and maintained the same cheerful attitude they might have shown while building a new office building or fixing a broken water treatment plant. The Zephyrians are calling it the greatest archaeological discovery in galactic history, added Commander Park with a grin. The Arcanites want to know if we can teach their engineers how to think like humans. 3 days later, the emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in recorded history. The same chamber that had been filled with despair and defeat just months earlier now buzzed with excitement and amazement. Representatives who had come to discuss evacuation plans were instead celebrating the most successful rescue mission anyone could remember. Ambassador Zeltar's crystal form was pulsing with colors so bright they lit up half the chamber. Captain Jiwan, he said, his voice carrying tones of wonder that translation devices struggled to convert into human language. Your species has accomplished something that every civilization in this chamber declared impossible. How did you do it? Giwan looked around the chamber at hundreds of alien faces staring back at her with expressions of curiosity, respect, and something that might have been awe. These were the same beings who had barely acknowledged humanity's presence just months ago, treating Earth's representatives like primitive children who didn't understand the complexities of galactic civilization. Maybe it's because you saw all the reasons why it couldn't be done, she replied after thinking for a moment. We just saw a job that needed doing. In the gallery above the main floor, she could see her crew sharing drinks and stories with fascinated alien observers. Sergeant Choi was explaining to a group of Arcanite warriors how humans had learned to make tools by hitting rocks together until they got sharp edges. Dr. Han was showing collective representatives her medical equipment, which by galactic standards looked like it belonged in a museum, but had somehow kept her teams healthy in the most dangerous environment anyone had ever worked in. Engineer Yoon was surrounded by alien scientists who wanted to understand how human primitive technology had succeeded where their advanced systems had failed. Lieutenant Kim was patiently answering questions from young alien students who seemed fascinated by the idea that impossible problems might just be puzzles that nobody had solved yet. Your approach to the mission was unlike anything we have ever observed, continued Commander Kess. All four of her arms, gesturing with what humans had learned to recognize as Arcanite amazement. You treated mortal danger as if it were a routine workplace hazard. Where we come from, replied Park, with a casual shrug, mortal danger is a routine workplace hazard. We've been dealing with impossible odds since we lived in caves and hunted animals 10 times our size with sharp sticks. Besides, added Jiwon, raising her glass toward the viewing port, where Research Station Omega could be seen orbiting peacefully in the distance. Impossible just means nobody's figured out how yet. Give us time, and we're pretty good at figuring things out. As word of humanity's success spread throughout the galaxy over the following weeks, Earth's reputation changed forever. They were no longer seen as the newest or most primitive members of galactic society. Instead, they had become the species you called when everyone else said something couldn't be done. The species that looked at impossible problems and asked, "Is that it?" The galaxy had learned an important lesson about the newest members of their community. Sometimes the best way to solve an impossible problem was to find someone who didn't know it was impossible and let them get to work.